Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I am Expert Daniel this week, and the Emperor Kelli will actually be joining us this week, but she's going to be a tad bit late. She'll be jumping in. Per usual, she's the Emperor. She can just jump right in whenever she wants, as she did in an episode or two ago where she jumped in 10 minutes before we ended, and per usual, but you'll get much more Kelli in just a few minutes. But today I have the latest guest on the podcast. We've been doing these extra episodes because Kelli and I know that there are so many of you that are without work. You're quarantined. And yes, we do have an embarrassment of content out there, but you're going through that pretty quick. I went through my whole podcast list pretty quick because I'm also working less in the store and I'm at home more, so I've been tackling more of that, so I'm always looking for more content as well. And because of that, we want to output more of this, and this week, Bobby thankfully was able to come on the podcast to give you all this extra episode and some insight into the industry. Yes, I know the Corona talk is everywhere, but this is more to give you an insight on how these two shops are trying to deal with the situation, me managing a comic book store and Bobby, who is managing a tabletop gaming store. So Bobby, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. And welcome, Brokettes. Hope we can provide some insight to you from behind the scenes. Some of it educational, some of it informational, and some of it sucky to hear. But it is what it is, and hopefully we can help you out.
And I think this will also be therapeutic for you and I because we can't really, while we discuss this stuff with our coworkers or our managers or owners, whatever it may be, and we kind of share it on Twitter and online, it's not too often. I think it's kind of rare that two different games managers or shop managers can actually communicate and go through this stuff. We've talked a little bit on Discord about it, but also with Kelli joining us, she will also be taking on this perspective as someone who works in food and beverage. And we covered some of that on the podcast, but this is going to be more in depth on some of the hardships that I think we're going through, just so that everyone can kind of see how this is all going. And thankfully, the Brokehead Core also submitted a line of questions this week. Normally it's you, Bobby, at Qbanslim, but this time they came forth for you and had some good stuff to ask you near the end.
Yeah, it has been an incredibly challenging past week and a half, almost 2 weeks, and we're in for the long haul with this. But yeah, you're right. This could be therapeutic. It could also open up doors. And yes, you're all correct. Also correct in saying that sometimes it's not often that people get to talk amongst themselves about different issues from different stores, because usually stores do nothing but fight. At least in my industry, they do nothing but fight. So it's hard to find someone to talk with and talk about those ins and outs in the industry.
So at the beginning of what was happening and how we were getting hit with this disease and these closures, did you preemptively start to do, let's say 2 weeks ago, I would say, did you start to make some moves in your store for the inevitable, what we now know is a full-on shutdown in many cities?
Well, the most we were doing, because it just made sense based on what was starting to unfold, was we ramped up our cleaning. So we were cleaning more. We clean already, and my standards in the store is like just everything has to be clean all the time. Unfortunately, I work in an industry with some less cleanly folk. We'll keep it like that. And we constantly have to clean up. So I just have higher standards that way. We're always, brushing off our tables, wiping down our counters. Bathrooms have to be cleaned constantly. So we just ramped it up a step further with Lysol spray before Windexing our glass counters, and then Lysoling more frequently. And just keeping a heads up for people that may be sick, staying away from somebody was sneezing or something. Like we definitely would keep our distance, try to encourage them to leave by ways of saying, hey, do you need a tissue or something like that? Because you can't ask somebody to leave if they're sick. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's against the law.
And so that the listeners get kind of a good idea on the amount of gaming you do in your shop, I know you do a lot of Pokemon, you do some Yu-Gi-Oh, and a lot of Magic. What all do you run at your store, and about what's the size of your location?
So if I rearrange my seating to what it against what it currently is for maximum capacity, I can get up to 220. I have run tournaments with 220 players, and then on top of that, a staff for the store, and then some judge staff. That's really pushing it. Comfortable numbers would be about 180 comfortably, and we run games anywhere from Magic the Gathering to Pokemon to Yu-Gi-Oh to Card Fight Vanguard to Dragon Ball Super to all the different Star Wars games. You got Star Wars X-Wing, Star Wars Armada, Star Wars Legion, Star Wars Imperial Assault. All of those games are pretty much, and Star Wars Destiny. All those are covered. We run tournaments for all those different games. We do open sessions all the time for Dungeons and Dragons, and if it's not D&D, then it can be any RPG really. If somebody wants to come in and run their Pathfinder group, they can. So those take up more space because those individuals will sit at a table around each other, and they'll sit there for hours. We don't do anything for them. Essentially, they just take the space. Mm-hmm. They kind of run themselves. As far as frequency of tournaments, 7 days a week. We're open 7 days a week, and we run a different tournament every single day of the week. Sometimes multiple on a day. There'll be times. Let's see, what's our busiest frequency? Tuesdays have become busy. I'll run Pokemon at night along with Magic Pioneer, and then we'll have D&D groups. Wednesday we'll have D&D, Magic Modern, and Dragon Ball. And then the weekends are just a mixture of a ton of different events. So sometimes there'll be 3 to 4 tournaments all running at the same time.
And I know as we were creeping into this section of the media really starting to point out how this virus was spreading throughout New York and California. I don't know if you saw the same effect on yours just because your core is so passionate about their gaming. But for my Pokemon and D&D sessions, which are my 2 popular events in my shop, I definitely saw a lighter crowd about a week and a half, around the same period we were talking, like 2 weeks ago, where some people were getting a little nervous about showing up to events. Some of the D&D players communicate with each other outside the store, and they're like, yeah, some people are nervous. One guy said he was sick, so he didn't want to get anyone else sick. And that's sort of, once we saw that start happening, we were like, okay, we need to just cancel all events. And that's a little bit different at my store because we have comics, we have tabletop gaming we sell, we have Funko Pop, all the other merch. But for a store like yours, did you feel pressured at all to kind of hold off as long as possible and first maybe limit how many people are in as opposed to just canceling events outright?
Yeah, and that's a good question because I am an event center. We have retail, we sell retail product, but we thrive on events. And the important thing about events is it's not about making money off the events. It's about the community aspect. It brings people together, and that's mainly what they're there for, is to play in those tournaments. Obviously, we provide prize support for that and stuff. Early on, when a lot of that was starting to come down, we knew, like, okay, this doesn't look good. We're going to keep an eye on it. That's when we started ramping up our cleaning. And then when the CDC went to 50 or less, we were kind of worried. Mm-hmm. I had no tournaments that got up to 50, so we were fine. We just had to monitor the amount of people in the store. As far as people falling off, I didn't have too much of a fall off. However, it's hard to gauge that because it was during spring break, and I'm near UCF, University of Central Florida, so a lot of those kids, those students were not around. So it was hard to gauge that initially. As far as like Pokemon, for example, none of my players really fell off. They all came in. When they did fall off is when we had to start canceling our events, because obviously then it's serious. Mm-hmm. And that we canceled our events when the CDC put down the 10 or lower. That's when we had to cancel all events immediately. But just prior to that, some other major game companies had just started stepping in and saying, hey, we're canceling this large tournament, things like that. So like Magic was one of the first ones. They canceled some of their large Grand Prix and Magic Fests that were upcoming, but only for like the next month. So they were being careful, but they weren't looking ahead too far, because obviously that's a lot of money lost. Mm-hmm. And logistically and planning, and there's a lot that goes on behind running or renting venues for tournaments like that. that was the first major company that did that. And then a couple days after that, Konami came around and had said something similar, but canceled events even further. So then we were all like, well, what's going on here? Like, Konami is looking 2 to 3 months ahead. Magic Wizards of the Coast is only looking ahead, the next 20 days or so. What's going, do they really think this is a joke? And we don't know either at that time. We're just thinking this is going to all pass over. It's just one city. No big deal. And then, look where we're at now.
Yeah, when we got the notification for Pokemon too, that all events, a few days before we had said, okay, we're canceling all events this week. And we were kind of taking it week by week and also being careful. But, we kind of came to this realization when Pokemon said all sanctioned events are canceled. We will send you pre-release kits and you can just start selling them. And that's when we're like, all right, so this is going to be a long-term thing. And, D&D and all them, we were just like, look, guys, we will announce instead once games are back up and running, because we were going, all right, this week, no, events are canceled. Next week, all right, events are canceled. We're going to push it to this day. And then, just like yourself, we kind of realized this is going to be a long haul thing where it'll take at least a month, and it doesn't make sense to just cancel week by week and instead just say, guys, people are going to be apprehensive to go out. They're not going to want to go to gaming stores right away or even gatherings after this all blows over. They're still going to be kind of scared for a few weeks or so. So it's like, no, man, we just got to cancel for now. And then when they tell us it's all good, and a few weeks after, I think that's when we'll go, all right, let's try to start events again. And it sucks, but, taking this week by week and being as careful as possible, it's going to make this thing blow over quicker.
Yeah, and you mentioned Pokemon sending that information. I personally was a little frustrated. I do a lot of work for Pokemon, I'm sure you know, and this was in the midst of me coming back from St. Louis regional championships, and was about to go out to Charlotte for their regional championships. I did not go to Toronto, which was the week before that, because I just decided to cancel. They hadn't canceled any of those. We were all just in limbo, like, what the heck's going on? So even as a staff member, I was still in limbo. Luckily, I had already backed out of Toronto 2 weeks prior. There was people that already traveled there. We're talking Thursday, and this was really starting to ramp 2 weeks ago. They're like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? And, I was still involved in all the conversations because I was part of the staff group, but then all of a sudden, Friday morning, Trudeau had come out and said, hey, we're doing this and this and that. All of a sudden, Pokemon made their massive announcement as if they were waiting for that to happen to release all the rest of their announcements. I'll never understand why they wait to the last second, but it's weird. So they did cancel Toronto. The sad part is there were people that didn't know that. They were already mid-flight, boarded the plane. There was people that were already there. So that's a disaster. And then, not to mention, this is Friday. By Sunday, they had started shutting down the borders on the Canada side. They were not letting people leave Canada. So there was a couple of people that had some trouble. They did get back, but they had some trouble getting back into the U.S. Some drove, the rest flying. All that aside, they sent the announcement. They canceled that and Charlotte, which was the one I was waiting on because I was going to that. That was the week after. So that got canceled. And then the middle of that week alone, then they came out and made a second announcement. Okay, we're just canceling all organized play events, which you were just referring to. League Cups, League Challenges, Regional Championships, Internationals, Mid-Season Showdowns, and Premier Challenges. Nothing that requires championship points. And we highly advise tournament organizers not to run tournaments. Now, the one little key thing in there is they say tournament organizers are independent contractors, and they can do what they want, but we highly advance against running any organized play events. So that's dumb, and I know why they do it. It's because they don't want to take any blame for something that may happen. But of course, we're going to follow those rules, and we're not going to. I mean, if the CDT says we can't have 10 or more, what the heck tournament are we going to try to run? Plus, who's going to show up? Let's be real.
And the Emperor Palpatelli has just joined us, fashionably late.
As always.
2-week streak.
I just got to keep it up, I guess.
And we were covering how about 2 weeks ago we had this slow build up. The Brokehead Core know that we're covering this thing from a games manager perspective, which is Bobby, myself with the comic shop, and you with food and beverage. And what kind of ramp up did you guys have from a coffee shop on, all right, how are we going to transition to less people on board, more cleaning? How was that ramp up going? And at what point did you go, okay, this is serious, we need to make these changes?
It was definitely not a slow ramp up. It was, I woke up one morning and it was, here's how you're going to clean now. And they were very proactive of it okay, we're seeing, it's not where you are yet, but across the board, every 30 minutes, we're washing hands. Every 30 minutes, we're sanitizing everything and really making sure that we were taking those extra steps and keeping us, of course, informed about what was going on. It really didn't get serious for me until last week. My store actually had some closures, just to make sure everybody's safe and healthy, right? But also for staffing levels and people saying, hey, I'm just not comfortable. I'm just going to stay at home for a little while. And that's the decision that I need to make for my family. And of course, the company that I work for is being extremely understanding of that and saying, yeah, that's okay. Like, you're not comfortable, stay home with your family. So that's cool. But it puts a lot of pressure on me as the manager. And I'm sure you all, both of you feel the same way, is you take so much ownership for what goes on in the store. Mm-hmm. So while I'm supportive of everyone who says, I'm just not comfortable, I want to stay home, I still feel responsible for that. I'm like, okay, so how much more do I need to do to compensate for that person not being there? So yeah, we had a closure this week. I did not take it well at all. Because again, I feel responsible for that. So we do get to reopen in just a few days and I'm excited and I'm gearing up for that and trying to understand, how I'm going to support with the shorter hours that we have to run. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating because, yes, I want to be there for the community, for the first responders, for all the people who need to come out and get their cup of coffee before they go into work. But we're doing more sales than we did before this happened. So, it's not just first responders. It's not just people who really need this who are coming through. It's people who say, well, nothing else is open, but I want to be out of my house. Or, they tell me I need a lockdown, but nah, I'm not really going to listen to that and just do what I want. And so that's the frustrating piece, is trying to balance that. I want to be here for my community and create normalcy with, should they really be out? Like, I would just rather be serving first responders if I could be.
Or the family that's out there taking their entire family out to the store because they got nothing else better to do, including their little children, because they're bored.
The last day before we closed, and I mean, there was a pretty significant, we weren't in full lockdown yet, but it was pretty significantly stated that you need to just stay home. And, we'd be like, cool, did you got any, what's going on this weekend? What are you doing with your family? And so many people were like, well, we're going to the beach. And it's like, that's not what this is about. I get that you want to maintain normalcy, but the sooner you stay inside, the sooner this goes away.
I kind of had an oh shit moment today, my first one, where a guy came in decked out in gloves and the mask and all that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's kind of weird. But then he's wearing a New York hat. And I'm like, all right, so there's a lot of those fans down here, but I'm going to go ahead and dig a little bit, right? So I'm asking, which one's, he knew about the sales we were running during this month. And he's like, I said, which one's your home store? Which one do you normally go to? And he said, I go to like Midtown. And he's naming all these New York stores. And I said, so you're down here on vacation? He's like, yeah, I got here like 3 weeks ago. I was trying to escape all of that. And I'm like, oh shit.
So you just brought it with you.
Have you had any of those yet, Bobby?
No, thank God.
That's good.
I've not had that. Now I've had people decked out, covered up. Quick story on that real quick. It was yesterday. A person came in, and as soon as they were talking to me, they pulled out some hand sanitizer, and they were standing a distance away, which was great. Mm-hmm. It's good. Pulled a hand sanitizer, decked their hands out with it. And then he wasn't wearing gloves, but he had everything else on. Like, he had a sweater covering him, and then because it was freaking hot outside, and mask. He's talking about things, and then I get him what he needs, and then I hand him the stuff, and I put it on the counter, and he like touches it like with the tips of his fingers to move it towards the edge of the counter. And then as we're talking more, I see him move it to the edge of the counter and like wipe it down. I'm like, all right, that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. It's being careful. And then he pays. He gives me his card. So he like awkwardly hands me his card with like touching the very corner tip of it. And I'm like, oh crap, I gotta I got to handle this correctly because he's watching out for me and I'm watching out for him. So I take the card and I swipe it, and I was like, before I give this back to you, I'm going to get a Clorox wipe and completely wipe this down and give it to you in the wipe. Is that okay? He's like, oh man, I appreciate that. So I understood what he was trying to do. So I just looked out for him and took it a step further, instead of just handing the card back with my grubby hands all over it, because I mean, I'm back there, I'm touching money and other things. He doesn't know what's on our keyboards, stuff like that. So I saw him brighten up when I said that. So I went and grabbed a Clorox wipe, took the card, completely wiped it down, and then didn't touch it again except for with the wipe, and handed it to him. I was like, it's a little wet, but it's completely sanitized. He's like, oh man, I really appreciate that. And then after he put the card away, he took sanitizer out again and decked his hands out. He signed, and then his sanitizer again. And then he took the tips of the packs that he bought, and just dropped them into his pocket. Like, people like that, they're being very careful. And I did my part to try to accommodate, our social distancing and understanding him without him telling me, like, hey, let's be careful touching this kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's something that I've had to kind of also think about when, I do reassure customers if they're coming in, like, trying to open the doors with their, I don't have automatic doors. You have to pull the thing open. And,
yep.
When they're pushing doors with their elbows or whatever, that's when I reassure them, hey, just so you know, I sanitize the doors and everything every so often. If no one's in here, still at least every hour. You never know. You might have missed something, and it never hurts to. This is a tough disease that takes more than honestly, it takes more than the wipes that we have, but it gives everyone that peace of mind of, all right, well, they're doing their part. They're at least trying, and that's all you can do. Kelli, you had mentioned that kind of down point that you had when they had to close down your store. Mine was when the comics were announced as no longer showing up to any stores, printing has stopped. I had my down moment. And for Bobby, at what point did you say, all right, this is my low point? And I know we've both had to do a temporary layoff for some employees. So was it at that moment, or was it just as hours started going down completely?
This past 2 weeks have been destructive. I have been laid off before, so I've been through this, but not in this circumstance. I mean, this is a world circumstance that there should be some understanding behind. And forgive me if I get a little emotional, because it's just been rough. But every day I wake up for the past 2 weeks, and it's been new news, worse than the day before. So I've had to lay off my entire staff. So, that was tough. Some of them are young. Some of them don't understand. Some are, in their 20s, and, they're trying to grip with the fact that, what does this mean? What's next? I have rent due. That's the common from all of them is like, I have rent due in a week. What am I supposed to do? Personally, myself, I just bought a house. So I have a mortgage due each month now. And between that and then Thursday, closing my store for the last time, because we had to close because of the stay-at-home order. We just can't stay open. So, we hope we get through this, and I'm hoping that I can wake up a day without bad news. Today there was some other news that got pushed out there company-wise, so it's like, I don't know when it's going to stop. Hopefully the bleeding stops at some point. For you, I was completely shocked when I heard Diamond was shutting off. I would not expect that. I understand why, but that's a blood vessel. You're shutting that off. That's huge. I don't think a lot of people understand exactly what that means and what the ramifications of that's going to do to the entire industry. I hope it doesn't pan out that way, but I think you and I understand the writing on the wall for that. That it could be. So we just have to be careful and do what we can as quote unquote nerds and get everybody rallied behind it to support all the little stores and all those places that provide this content, because we're in uncharted territory. So, who knows?
Yeah, as far as the Diamond closure, it's very it was very nerve-wracking, of course, but I did like that the independent publishers were the first to step up, and I knew they would be. They always are, to help out the readers, to help out the stores, and saying, hey, all of this is going to be returnable. We're not going to make, most of them went, we're not going to make this available digitally until it's available in stores, which is a huge thing for us. I think it's a huge gesture of goodwill to the retailers and to brick and mortar. And we were waiting on the big two because they were the last ones to say anything, and Marvel still really hasn't given their full plan. DC finally said today that everything that's releasing between now and June is returnable, and that they're working on another plan to get books out at a quicker pace in case these Canadian printers don't churn back on. So they're looking at different distribution channels just to get this out sooner to shops that actually want them. So I think they're looking at, I think it's still a month out, but in case these Canadian publishers can't get open, then they can say, all right, most of it, we've turned the corner in the country. We can at least start distributing books and we can send those out. And Marvel still hasn't announced a plan. They had to come out and say today, hey, we are working on a bigger plan.
Sure you are.
You know, so it's like, all right, this is good. Like, there was some pressure on those big two. And as long as at least one of them had a plan of, no, we are going to continue print. We are going to keep doing this. This is what we're doing to help out stores. Then that's great. At the end of this, there will be less comic shops and less game shops, and I think less stores and publishers in general than when we first started this. And that's a very unfortunate thing, but it's a matter of how quickly can we stop the bleeding? And I think that's going to be one of the bigger things. Kelli, did you have to do any layoffs of your own at your shop?
Thankfully, no. I work for a big enough company that's not really something that I would have to handle regardless. But additionally, I'm essential. I'm that that meme right now because we are food and beverage. So we are allowed to stay open. We are doing a lot of really great things, free coffee for first responders, for employees throughout the company. There's additional benefits that they're rolling out. But that's not to say when this is all over that changes don't happen, right? Right now, they have this money, they can take care of people. And like I said, when it all pans out, that's not to say that things don't change.
And to add to that, I am fortunate because I am considered essential. My position, myself. So the company kept me on. They could easily let me go. They've given me the opportunity to do kind of what I want, which is a little awkward, but I decided not to do that because I don't have enough work to do to keep myself busy for a whole week. So I just volunteered to go work at our major warehouse. So I'm working there weekdays just to do something. And then the second that we're able to open our stores up, I'll go reopen my store, hopefully. It's supposed to be 2 weeks, but it's looking like it's going to be further than that, but we have just waiting game at this point.
So I know the lockdown does prevent any kind of operation out of the store. I've seen some stores in Orlando that are able to still get into their shops, and obviously you can do whatever work you want during those particular hours. I know you said you're working from the warehouse. Did you ever have any kind of option to do a curbside pickup or maybe shipping out of your store during certain hours?
So since we have, my company has a very large website, we ship worldwide. So since we already have that in place, it's not necessary to come to the store. So it actually encourages them to stay home and order online versus just coming in store to pick it up. So to our advantage, we already have that. It just, by closing the store, it keeps people from coming out, which they shouldn't be anyways. That's the option for that. As far as me working in the store, that was the option I was given for the next 2 weeks, is quote unquote 2 weeks, is to go in and work on projects, get things done that I normally wouldn't have been able to get done, things like that. I am in a plaza, so I have access to my building whenever I want, but I chose not to do that. So I just chose to go to the warehouse. Warehouse is exempt from the stay-at-home order. Any warehousing districts are all excluded.
That works out pretty well. I've been fortunate so far. We've had to cut down hours like crazy, right? We've gone bare bones. I've taken a significant pay cut, all in the interest of preserving the shop as much as possible. We unfortunately had to do a temporary layoff already of one of our employees, so I'm down to my full-timer and then the owner, full-timer, who isn't getting 40 hours, of course. So they can apply for partial unemployment to try to make up some of that. And then I'm also like, all right, like, with the pay cut that I took, the next step is now, if it goes even further, when and if the shutdown hits my county, that's when it's like, what's going to happen? Do I have to then apply for unemployment, or am I able to use some PTO? Or if I use PTO, is that going to significantly hurt the shop? So there's a lot that could be around the horizon, or that is on the horizon, that I'm just not worrying about yet, because I know it's not going to do me any good right now. But the fact that we've tried to be as proactive as possible on social media to say, hey, you can still come in. It's limited to how many people you can have in the store, but you can come in and do curbside pickup. You can do delivery. You can do regular pickup. And it just has worked out so far, but I know that I'm an exception right now, especially in Florida. So as we sort of wrap up this first section of what's been happening, what's been going on, what kind of incentives have you both seen from, I know Papa Kelli, you deal with some distributors, but it's mainly handled from, your central company.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go with Papa Kelli, and then Bobby. What kind of incentives have you seen from your companies that you maybe buy some from? So Bobby from publishers, and then Papa Kelli from maybe just your company in general.
So as far as ordering, everything is handled because this food and beverage is a distribution warehouse. So there's no incentives to order things, to keep bringing stuff in as far as that goes, because it's just all handled on a higher level, right? It's handled through the company that I work for, and it's their warehouse, and et cetera, et cetera. There are definitely incentives for employees to keep working, though. I know different companies are offering different things, but because we're able to be open, they gave a temporary $3 raise per hour just to try and keep people working. And I am amazed at the number of people who are still saying, well, I would just rather stay home. And that kind of further proves to me, right, how serious this is for a lot of people, because I mean, me now, it doesn't make a difference, what I work, because I'm salaried. But back in the day when I was hourly, I'd be like $3 an hour. Yeah, I'll catch like the death flu, right? For the extra $3 an hour. But I am down to probably less than half my staff. There's several stores who are less than a third are coming in for that extra incentive. And I'm thankful that they're doing that. It makes a difference for a lot of families. I have one of my employees who's saying, I don't want to come in, but I'm the only one making money in my family right now. So I need to come in and take care of them. And that's really the only incentive that we're offering company-wide.
So some incentives that, and I'm saying this to the masses, that you may not understand, or someone, maybe one of your employees or someone may not understand, is that as much as a layoff may suck, and as much as it may destroy somebody, it sometimes is a good thing, because if you're working in an environment like right now, if they are able to work, their hours go down significantly. So that person that's making, almost 30 hours a week, let's just go with a part-timer. Let's say they're maybe getting, 24 to 30 hours a week, and you've cut that down to maybe 12. They may still have a job, but they're not getting the income that they need to do what they require. Let's say their rent payment, for example, because that's an important one. Sometimes it's better to be laid off in these current scenarios, as terrible as that is to sound, because they can immediately apply for unemployment. And because of the emergency fund that has been established for unemployment, they're going to get those paychecks kicking in really quick. And that paycheck can be, it's been a while since I've looked at it, but I think it's $250 or $300 a week. And sometimes that's better than what you were making prior. So when laying off people, sometimes they may not understand that that's a better option for them, because all they're thinking about is, I have rent due, or I have this due, how am I going to pay for this? And not looking at the big scope of things of, I'm only going to get 10 hours a week and making this much dollars. So there's that scale of how that works. Back to the original portion of it was, what was it, laying people off?
Yeah, and also what the companies are doing, because, we're doing, most of the publishers are doing returnability. Are you seeing anything from Wizards as far as like something to help out brick and mortar?
Nothing at all. Pokemon, not a blurb from them, nothing.
Right.
Konami, nothing. They're still shipping out their pre-release kits for April, as far as I'm concerned. I filled out a survey for that like 3 days ago. Excuse me. And then WotC, Wizards of the Coast for Magic, they're trying to do a bunch of events right now, but all digital. And they gave stores codes for card backs on Magic Arena. Take that for what you will. I don't think that's anything, but what the players have to do is they're playing in an F&M Friday Night Magic on Arena right now. And if they play on Friday and they play with the Challenger decks that they've been issued, first of all, it's free to play in Arena, so they just have to play it. They play that and send us a screenshot, which I had to set up a Facebook group for that, unfortunately. And when they send us a screenshot of their completed match, then I can then message them a code to get the custom card back in the game, which we did yesterday, and we're doing next Friday and the Friday after. For at least the next 3 weeks, we're doing that. That's the only type of engagement, or if you want to call it a benefit, that I've gotten from any company. And also, news to everyone, Wizards of the Coast 2 days ago officially announced they're delaying the release of Ikoria, which is their next Magic set, which is in April. It's the first time in Magic history that they're delaying a set. So that'll be out on May 15th now instead of April 20-something, whatever day it was. So full month delay. They were going to do at-home pre-release, like you mentioned earlier with Pokemon. They changed it twice, and then they fully delayed it, postponed it, whatever. Pokemon, I fully anticipate them moving their set as well. So we haven't gotten that communication yet. I think they're waiting it out as much as they can. But I fully anticipate that by Pokemon as well. As far as board game companies, nothing, not a mum. One impact from Diamond, even though it affects you the most. Diamond is also the exclusive distributor for Alliance. Well, Alliance is one of the game companies that we use. So Alliance shut down, obviously hurts us. Alliance is also their ACD. They are the main and only distributor for all Fantasy Flight games and Asmodee North America. So what that means is all those board games from all those companies, because Asmodee North America is like the Disney of board games. They just buy up all these other companies and distribute it for under one umbrella, which is, in board gaming, that's a good thing because a lot of these companies just can't survive. However, they struck a deal like 3 years ago where Alliance was the only company that could be used to distribute. Well, that creates a funnel, unfortunately, a bottleneck. Like all the Star Wars titles all the Disney and Star Wars properties are tied to that for all the minis and all that stuff. So there's a whole lot of product that gets shut down because now Alliance is now shut down because of Diamond. That affects me as well.
Yeah, so not a lot of support from the gaming community, it sounds like, unfortunately. So this will severely impact a lot of game shops, and I had heard a little bit about the Magic incentive, but it's not much of anything. And I didn't know that Pokemon was debating delaying it. I'm thinking maybe that's the better move because their original email was all about, well, once you guys get this, you can sell it. But I was like, man, I'm not going to move as many. If I get them early, it's like I'll sell some, but I sell way more if I have an event tied to it, because people want to play, they want to compete, they want to get more. In my store, I offer some additional pricing, and it's like, well, I'm not going to be able to move them as quickly if I just put them on the shelf and hope that they move without an event around them. I think it would be the weakest selling set out there, but I could see how that could be more of a desperate move for a game shop that's like, no, we need that product. We need to be able to move that product sooner rather than later.
It's not even that. It's the places that, let's say they do survive this, they might not be open yet because you have to look logistically around the nation. Let's look at New York, for example. There's no way in hell New York is going to heal completely back to normal within a month. Like they're still on the downward spiral. They haven't even started their uptick yet. So you take that and magnify it through the U.S., you're shipping product to nobody. And you risk putting players at risk just for coming out and buying that product. Yeah, the sales are going to help stores, no doubt. Absolutely. Those are sales that stores need. But knowing Pokemon, they're looking at the bigger picture, and they're not just looking at the dollars. They're looking at their audience and who's going to get it. We also don't know what distributors are going to be shut down coming up and in the foreseeable future. I can't confirm this, and I'm not going to name companies, but there's other distributors that are going to go down. It's evident. So we've already got pre-communication on that's going to happen. So Diamond was just the big one. Obviously, that affects one side of an industry, whereas the rest affect the same industry and others. So we'll wait to see what happens with that. As this goes on, we're going to see things happen that we've never seen before, sadly. With the pre-release, who knows? It's ultimately their decision. I'd like to see it released on time. I'm a fan. I run the stuff. You're a fan. You run the stuff. You have a great community. We both have great communities. We just got to wait and see what happens.
Before we jump into questions from the Brokehead Core, what would each of you say that someone who is able to still buy things from their local store that they want to support, that they want to help out? On my end, I've seen a lot of people buy gift certificates, which is huge because it helps with the cash flow in the store, and it's something that they can obviously use once product is back in. They're also catching up on reading material like trade paperbacks. What could people do now to help out their local coffee shop or their local tabletop store? I'll start off with Bobby, and then we'll head to Kelly.
For tabletop gaming or even a comic store, same thing. If you spend in any industry place, really, you buy a gift card, you're giving that company instant access to money. Now, I can't speak to the big corporate level stores because that's a little bit different. But when you're talking local level, mom and pop or non-corporate type stores, that's instant cash flow. So that's bonus number one. Number two is you also have to think about that gift card that you're going to use in the future. Although you may think, well, that money's already spent. They're not making money off of me. They have to essentially just give me the product. Well, that's not the point. The point is you came in. So it's how much more money can you spend on top of the quote unquote free money that you're spending that day that you're there. So if you got a $50 gift card, you're getting $50 in product for free. Just look at it that way. I obviously you spent the money before. Fine, forget it. It's done. It's spent. It's over with. Look at the purchase for today. So you're spending the $50 that you're getting there. And then just make a normal purchase after that. Like, I want to buy this item and it's $25.99. All right, well, you've just given them another $26 that they wouldn't have gotten if you didn't get that gift card. And if you're not going to get the gift card for yourself, get gift cards and gift those out. Get those for gifts for birthdays that are coming up, for holidays that are coming up. We have a social distancing thing right now. Mail those out. Mail those out to people that need to get them. Like, hey, your birthday's next month. Here's a gift card to this place. Things like that will work. If you're talking about walk-in sales and not a gift card, then just spend money. Anything you spend is going to help that business because they need business because, one, we're hurting for business no matter what store you look at unless you're a grocery store. And then two, it incentivizes them to even stay open later when they're probably considering closing because of the current state. Yes, health is important and keep people healthy is important. We get that. But if we're staying open for a reason because there's people that we need to serve. So you got to think of that as well. So spend money. Don't break the bank trying to do it, but buy things. And gift cards are helpful. They can be.
Yeah, kind of on the same note for me, purchasing gift cards is big, even if it's not for yourself, right? You're going to get a gift card, you're going to give it to somebody else, and they're going to come through at another time and maybe purchase more, or maybe you purchase more. Of course, you can't just stop with one coffee, right? You buy a gift card enough for one coffee and you got to buy 4 more for everybody in the office. So that is definitely really important. Buying whole bean coffee that you can brew at home, and maybe instead of going out every morning, you take 4 mornings and you stay at home. That again is flattening this curve that we're looking at and trying to help get past this faster so that everybody can get back to normal as quickly as possible. But most importantly, when you're going out to these places, when you need to grocery shop, when you're going out to food and beverage locations, your takeout, everything, just be incredibly kind to everyone that you interact with. Just because a business is open doesn't mean that their employees are not going through a lot. Doesn't mean that they're not scared. Especially grocery stores right now. Mm-hmm. They have nothing on the shelf. Don't yell at people because they have nothing. They're there for you. And I've seen so many stories the last few days of, the person in front of me went off on the cashier. Well, did you say something? Did you call these people out? Like in society, we don't want to call people out for doing rude things, but at this moment, we need to protect these workers who are essentially risking their health every day to come in for us, to be there so that we can continue our lives as normally as possible. And so that would be my biggest call to everyone is take care of the people around you when you're going out to these places, and just, you don't know what they're going through.
Yeah, I fully agree with both of you. Amazing advice to anyone that is able to still go out, still support. And if you can't, then, as always, be safe, be careful. And the more you stay inside, if you're ordered to, and even if you're not, if you're maintaining your distance, the better it will be for everyone and in keeping this all from spreading. This is going to be this episode's Brocat Block. And the Brocat Core came forward with a number of questions that are awesome. They came forward on Discord and on Twitter to ask primarily Bobby and I on running the type of stores that we do have. Papa Kelli, if you end up running any Yu-Gi-Oh or anything, you can feel free to jump in.
I might, you don't know.
The first question comes from Kage023 on Twitter. These are all going to be Twitter handles. He asked, quote, "How many hours are you at the shop on average? That includes being there before and after closing," end quote. So that can apply to you, Papa Kelli, as well.
Yeah, it does.
We'll start with Papa Kelli.
Oh my goodness. It's tough. That's a tough question. This is like when we're at normal business, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I took over the store the beginning of December. I will definitely say throughout December and half of January, it was probably 55 hours a week, pretty easily between the time I spent on the phone or floor doing extra projects, just kind of getting the store to the point where it needed to be, where I felt comfortable. Before all of this madness happened, I was down to 40 hours a week. I was proud of myself, but that also doesn't include everything I'm doing at home. And as managers, I'm sure both of you can attest to this. You're taking calls on your days off. You're looking at numbers. How did the store do? What can we change? Checking in with my team and saying, how was today? Where were the gaps? Where can we move forward again? Because we have so much ownership over the stores and what we do. So I was definitely down to 40. I have, of course, been home this week because of closures and probably have worked my 40 between phone calls and doing schedules and all these different kind of things, which is a whole new ball game when you also have your child at home with you. So hopefully getting back into it. I really can't speak for what the next few weeks will hold, how much I'll be there. It's going to depend on my staffing. How much more do I need to cover to make sure my team is successful? And a lot of that depends on how many people are coming out and going just to have some place to go, right? How many people are going to go through a drive-through just to get out of the house rather than stay at home? So who knows? I'm hoping I can stick to my 40, but I doubt that'll happen.
So I normally work on average anywhere from 42 to 46 hours. That's on a normal average time frame. Whenever we get to the cycles of major game releases and pre-releases, that's when it gets a little hectic. Usually right now it's about every 3 months, and I'll hit those 50-hour work weeks. A lot of that's self-inflicted because, I just do the extra work to make sure things are proper. That same sentiment is always there. You get what you reap what you sow. So I put a lot of work in, and, we do well on the back end with whether it be attendance or sales or happy staff, all that stuff. I go out of my way a lot of times to do things for my staff. I never deny a request off. I never deny them something that they need. So I always give them that time off or day off, and I'll work. I don't care. Why? Because when I need something, I'm going to need them to back me up. And that's just the way I run my shop. So that's always worked for me. And having the every so often over 50 is fine for me. Not a big deal. As far as before and after closing, I don't do too much because I'm able to get done a lot of stuff during the day. If I go in early, it's maybe 30 minutes. And as far as closing, I never stay after closing. We close and we get out. We just get the heck out of there.
I fit right on that same bracket with you, Bobby, of between 42 and 46 hours. So I guess I average out 44 and a half or whatever that math ends up being. And yeah, that does obviously depend on whether we're running a Pokemon pre-release or if it's like a massive new comic book day shipment, which I always end up at the store much later on a Tuesday because I fulfill some requests at night. And if it's a big release, there's going to be a lot of those coming in. And, you know, however late I stay on that Tuesday will be how many less requests I'll have to take care of on Wednesday morning. And I don't mind coming in Wednesday a little bit earlier, a little bit more refreshed and taking care of some of those. But yeah, that's what leads to those extra hours over that 40 mark. I schedule myself for about 42, but it never ends up being 42. Always ends up being a little more. And working on the computer, doing some graphics for the store, setting up posts for the store, all of that takes up time. So that is what we each average, Kage023. Next question comes from at S_Miller_27.
Wait,
Quote,
hold on.
Yeah.
Julian had one more part of that.
I might have missed it.
Also, do you have a way set up? Oh my gosh, I can't talk. Also, do you have a set way you need to set up the store, or is it up to you?
Oh, I might have missed. Yeah, I definitely missed that one. I'm guessing he's talking about the layout, the physical layout of each.
Yeah, blueprint layout.
Yeah, for you and I think it's the same where we have to maintain that. I don't think it's a requirement, but you can get fined on it, but where you have to maintain that certain distance between shelving so that wheelchairs can get through. Mm-hmm. So that's an obvious one. So we have to have, I want to say it's like 4.5. There you go.
34 inches, I believe, is what it is required for any walkway.
Mm-hmm. And the owner set all that up when we were first, doing the store. And anytime we do fixture, he just does the 4.5 steps or whatever, and in between each thing.
It's good. Yeah, 4.5 steps.
It's worked out though. We haven't had anyone get stuck
yet.
But the one thing I will speak on with this is we have our Funko Pops near the front of the store because when we're closed and people are looking into the store, that always gets their eyes, right? The Funko Pop, and go, oh, what do they have? And they're standing there looking at them. If I have trades or comics, your average person, the regular window shopper, they're going to see them. Oh, that's kind of cool. But it's not, the Wednesday comics are not really what's going to get them in there. It's going to be the regular merch. And then I do put the Marvel section, when we first set up, we put it all the way to the end of the store to the right, because at that time, that was the biggest column. So it kind of works the same in grocery stores. Essentials you put in the back of the store just so that people have to walk through most of the store. And then you increase the chances of something extra getting picked up. So it's the same with Marvel. It's all the way to as close to the back of the store as possible. And that way they pass up as much. So you don't have
to look at it? Is that what
I do look at the DC section all day from the counter, which is nice. But the Marvel section is all the way to the right. They have to go all the way there and pass up, keychains, Funko Pop, trades.
You hear this, Bobby? He's trying to sell us that he's putting it back there to get more people in it, so he doesn't have to look at it.
It's a bonus. Yeah. It's a win-win. That's how it goes. How about you, Bobby? What's your setup like?
Shocker. A lot of people don't get to have this freedom. I get to do what I want. Minus the legal requirements, obviously, for is it ACH or the handicap rules, all that stuff. Anyways, I get to merchandise in my store however I want. I can put my tables wherever I want. I can rearrange my store every day if I wanted to. If I wanted to change my table layout, I could do that too. So lucky me. The awesome thing about that is I've done such a good job with it. All the other 6 stores have to model their merchandising after me. So I've created a blueprint essentially for the company because it works so well. A lot of companies don't have that flexibility. Like you have to, like your boss, or if you work for a corporate, they'll say, nope, you need to put this here and you have this much to do it. It has to go only on this shelf and it has to go here specifically. Mm-hmm. I can do whatever I want. My slat wall, I can't move. However, if I really wanted to, I could destroy my slat wall, move it to the other side of the room and set up my counter over there if I wanted to. Would I do that? No. But I could do that if I theoretically wanted to. The reason why this is important for me is because I can move things around that don't sell that well. I'll notice things that people won't see or a slow selling product. Well, I'll move it to a place where I know it'll sell, and guess what? It's gone. All my clearance, I put exactly where I want my clearance, which is right near the register. My clearance sells very quickly because while they're waiting for me or an associate to ring them up or go through that transaction, their hands are in the clearance. And what are they doing? Oh, let me get this too. How much is this? Oh, this is 20% off. Yeah, let me get this too. So little tricks like that, putting things at eye level. I'm very good at putting things where people typically look so that they'll buy it.
I love the psychology of sales in the service industry. And I talk to people about this all the time. Even so, we have a drive-through, of course. Even the way you say things through the drive-through speaker, instead of saying, "Is that it?" you say, "What else can I get for you?" And we started doing that when I came in the store. I'm like, no, every single person, they like say an item and you're going to say, "Cool, what else can I get for you?" And they're always like, yeah, give me this too. Every single time. Yep. And it's so fascinating because people are like, I wouldn't have even thought of that. It's just the psychology of sales, right? Anyway, I do actually have more flexibility than you would actually think. I do, of course, have equipment that has to be plugged in certain spots because of drainage lines and voltage and all that kind of stuff. So for the most part, my equipment has to stay where it is, but all the little things I can move however I want. It's just dependent on what works best for my team and what works best for that space. I have tables in my lobby. I can technically move them wherever I want, but I'm not going to. It's functional. It works fine. I do have merchandise on the wall, and they'll send me kind of a schematic of, hey, here's, we kind of want these things grouped together, and they should kind of be on these shelves. But the schematic is never actually the number of shelves or the space that I have. So it's just kind of put it up there and make it look nice. But again, going back to the psychology behind sales, there should still be only a certain number of things up there because then it's going to look put together rather than cluttered and, just small things that you have to take care of that I'm trying to instill in my team. Like, okay, yes, we're food and beverage, but we still sell things and we still need to make those look presentable.
Did I miss anything else from Julian on this one?
No. That was it. And Julian at Cowgay023, I challenge you. I want a before and after pic. I want you to take a picture of an area in your work location, rearrange it, and then take a picture after.
That's a good challenge.
That's a great challenge.
I don't know how well to go with him, but over there. I think he said on the streams before he works for Walmart and
he can't move it around. That's why I challenge him. Do it. Blame it on somebody else.
On the newest guy.
It's Cheryl. It's all Cheryl.
Next question comes from Twitter user at S_Miller_27, who asked, quote, "My question is, what trades should we be reading during our COVID downtime?" End quote.
Saga.
Papa Kelly and I have answered this one over the last couple of episodes, so this one's all you, Bobby.
So I've got two stances on this. One, and for all out there, I don't run a comic shop, but I am a comic fan. I read a lot of comics, so take that for what you want. First of all, read what you want to read. So if you've been trying to read Robin, go find some Robin trades. Now, the next question you're going to have behind that was, oh my God, there's so many. Well, I guess that's what we're here for, right? We're your authority, especially at Reasons I'm Broke and the Palpiness, because they'll tell you what to read. Now, from my point of view, some good things that I've read over the years, I typically, if I get a trade, I usually go with a banner event. For example, we're going to talk some Marvel here because I used to read a lot of Marvel, and believe it or not, there's actually some good Marvel stories out there. I don't read a lot of Marvel now, by the way. It's just very inconsistent and terrible. My favorite, one of my favorites is World War Hulk. That kind of got me back into comics back in 2007. And ironically, Daniel, your owner, was the one that handed me that book and said, read this. So that was my gateway drug back into comics. He handed me that, and then I made the smart question of, okay, well, is there anything else I need with this? So pointed me directly to the hardcover of that hardcover, and then also gave me the Prelude to World War Hulk, which, I mean, it's all very good. So I will recommend that Prelude to World War Hulk, which is important to understand why World War Hulk started. And I'm not talking about the one or two of them that happened in the past couple years. I'm talking about the Frank Cho run. I'm sorry, incorrect. That is not the right person. It is I'm forgetting his name. We'll get to it in a minute when I remember. But this is back in 2007. So we'll use that as your date stamp. So 2007. That is very good. There's also a really good book in the Cosmic series in Marvel called Annihilation. It is absolutely fantastic. Dan Abnett and Lanning both did that whole thing. It is a collection of the Banner event along with all the one-shots that went along with it. It's 3 trades, 3 volumes, and it is fantastic. It includes the Guardians of the Galaxy. It has all that stuff in there. And we're not talking about the MCU Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy. We're talking about the comic book ones. So the good thing about that is the one-shots that are in there go through nice stories of each of those characters within those groups. And then obviously the main story that goes on with Annihilation and how it happens, which is really cool. The other Banner events that I like that are pretty good is Avengers versus X-Men. That was a really good one. One that involves the X-Men universe is what's the X-Men event?
Well, the big one was the Phoenix, the Dark Phoenix saga. I still sell that all the time. But then there's a House of M.
That one, House of M. House of M is really, really good. Read that. That's a very interesting thing. It's the divide between everything that goes on. I'm not going to spoil it. And then there's some other X-Men ones. There's one with Cable that's really important when he's got the baby Hope. Man, I don't know why I can't remember these right now. I don't have my bookshelf to look at because I just moved, guys. I apologize. Mutant X, I think is what it's called, or Messiah. Messiah is really good. Now we're going to the DC side. Read The Dark Knight by Frank Miller. Those are good. They're oldies but goodies. And then you've got any of the if you like Batman, a lot of the Batman stories are really good. You can just pick and choose where you think you might enjoy it. Kelly and Daniel have always recommended really good ones, so stick with that. It's cream of the crop. If you're looking for independent, I've read some Saga, so I can agree with Kelly. Saga's pretty good. One that I really liked, it got bad at the end. They just ended it recently, but Paper Girls. Paper Girls is really good, ironically, by the same team that did Saga. So Paper Girls is good. And then Kick-Ass. If you like Kick-Ass, go back and read the old Kick-Ass stuff. There's Kick-Ass, Kick-Ass 2, and then a new Kick-Ass run that just ended last year, I believe. That run was good too. And then the Hit Girl spinoffs, those are all good. It remains pretty consistent. That's the good thing about those.
Plenty of homework for the Brocat Core. Lots of suggestions there.
There will be a book report at the end of the quarantine.
That's right. Another question here comes from @InsmouthTide, who asked, quote, "What are qualities you look for in employees?" So that's the first question right there. Papa Kelly?
Ooh, so many qualities. I definitely look for food and beverage experience. I mean, that's big. I will hire people who don't have it, though. I think I've talked about on the show before. I have a pretty interesting store. It's the training center for the region is what it's called. But essentially what that means is we have meetings there from district managers, regional vice presidents, regional directors. Pretty much anytime there's a meeting in Central Florida, it's at my store, which puts a lot of pressure on us, right? Because we have to be perfect all the time. Licensed stores come in and they say, oh, well, I guess this is how they do things in corporate, right? So it gives us the great opportunity to make connections with these different individuals, to really get to know them. But of course, to be the best, and I don't want to say perfect, but just to be the best that we can all the time. So that's something that I always say in my interviews is, I'll say, so this is what my store is. And then I gauge their reaction. If it's, oh man, that's terrifying, versus, wow, that's a really great opportunity, right? That just kind of shows their mindset. How willing are they able to accept this feedback and do the things that they need to do to keep us at that point. But I also look for energy. If somebody doesn't have energy in an interview, if they're not excited to be there and to talk to me, then, I've interviewed some people who are just flat the entire time. And I'm here like pouring my heart out. And I'm like, this is why I love what I do. This is why food and beverage is great. What do you think? Tell me your experience. And like, yeah, I did it once. And I'm just like, oh no. like if you can't get there in an interview, then I don't expect you to be able to get there on the floor when there's 47 million things going on. So probably the thing I look for most is that energy. Can they make eye contact with me? I expect nerves, but if by the end of the conversation they still haven't pulled themselves out of that, then I kind of move on pretty quickly.
I pretty much everything that Kelly just said. 100%.
Food and beverage experience too.
Fair. Except for that. I don't really look for the qualities that are pertain to my industry, like gaming knowledge. That's a huge plus. What I look for is everything that Kelly just explained. I'm an inspector. I'm a detective while I'm doing the interview.
Yeah.
So I may be listening to or writing a couple things down, but I'm focused on everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And when I interview someone, I make it very casual. I don't make it where it's sit behind the desk and I'm intimidating. It's very laid back. Try to get, and the reason for that is to make the other person comfortable, because yes, nervousness is a thing, and I can detect that sometimes. So once we're past that, it's are you here because you're here? Are you here because you applied? Are you here because you just need $1? Or what's the purpose? And yes, enthusiasm is huge. I need personality. I need someone that talks. Because in customer service, you have to be able to talk. If you can't talk when you're working in a customer service position, then you don't need to work in that position. Pretty much 90% of retail positions are customer service positions. So unfortunately, that's just what it is. If you can't do that portion, then you don't belong there. You got to find something else to do. Nothing bad here intended, but you need to go work in a warehouse or something. And that's not maybe by choice, but maybe that's just how you are. But if it is by choice, then you can change it. It's something you can improve on. I'm looking for, eye contact, like she said. I'm looking for, how's that person dressed? Did they come in flip-flops and a t-shirt?
That's a big one. No, you would be surprised.
That's how I came in.
That is how he came in. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
And now I manage a comic store, so it was fine.
Oh, goodness.
That interview is, in my eyes, is already over. If you walked in the door and didn't have the decency at least to dress up. Did I say wear a suit? Absolutely not. You don't need to wear a suit. If you wear a suit, great. It shows me that you care. Mm-hmm. But if you just dress casual, just business casual, at the very least, just attempt. Even if you dressed and your shirt was not ironed, I would give you that much credit. But then I would second guess why it's not ironed. So it because then that shows lack of care. But it's like, show me that you want this job. Show me what you can provide to me beyond this interview in your interview. So the energy is very important, just like Kelly said. Why do you want this? It's not because I need to make $1. It's because you want to make a difference. I want to look at the people that want to make a difference in my store and help me.
And if people are looking for interview tips within this, because I will go back and say, while enthusiasm is great, do not call your potential employer every single day.
Nope.
Asking if they've looked at your resume and when they'll get their interview. Because I have people who call every single day. And we get busy, right? As managers of stores. Yeah, maybe I'll say, hey, I'm going to try and call you Friday. And then it's Monday and I still haven't had the opportunity. Don't show up every day and ask my staff when I'm going to be in. That's a huge red flag.
To be fair, and I agree with that, but to be fair, a lot of job guides will say follow up with the employer after you've applied.
Yeah, but not every day.
Yes. In general, that's maybe a good thing to do it a couple days after you've applied. Just one small poke. That's it. One tiny poke. And it's not even asking to demand to talk to a person. It's like, I just wanted to make such and such person aware that I applied. If you could just let me know, that'd be great. And then fall off. But if you're calling every day, like she said, yes, I don't want to hear that. And I'm not going to even bother looking at your application at that point, because now I know what kind of person you're going to be. So I don't want that employee.
Can I go down a rabbit trail and tell the best story about somebody calling over and over? So I had, oh my God, it's the best. So I had someone who I wasn't in the store, but had applied and had called like 3 or 4 times, and then finally just came in because I hadn't had the opportunity to to talk to them yet, and talked to somebody and said, cool, I'm really interested. I'm from, they worked at the fast food joint next door, right? Really interested. I love coffee, X, Y, and Z, and left. And so I came into my employee, told me about it. I was like, okay, cool. I'll be on the lookout. Called that evening. And, I'm talking to him on the phone, and he's like, so I came in and talked to Ryan earlier. And I was like, I don't have a Ryan that works here, but I'm the manager. What can I help you with? I'm the hiring manager. And they're like, no, I definitely spoke to Ryan. And I was like, well, I definitely don't have a Ryan. I have an Ivan. And no, it wasn't Ivan. Maybe it was Brian. Argued with me for 5 minutes over the name of my employee. And I finally go, just what can I help you with? And he goes, oh, I'm looking for a job with you. So I was like, okay, well, I will talk. I will look at applications, and if you meet qualifications, we'll call you. Came in that night to introduce himself to me, and I looked him right in the face, and I said, his name was Romance. Looked him right in the face, and I said, Romance, you argued with me for 5 minutes over the name of my own employee. Like, really? And he's like, well, I just wanted to be sure. And I said, you argued with me for 5 minutes, and he just walked out. That was the end. And never called that man back.
Also, the worst thing you could ever say or not let somebody say is they're in a place and they look up and they say, oh, wow, I'm just going to relate it to my business. Oh, man, I love Magic. I love Pokemon. Oh, it'd be so much fun to work here.
Oh, no.
I do not want to hear that, because that means that's not the reason why you want to work there. Or the other one is, I hate my job so much, it looks like it's fun to work here. Are you hiring? No, don't say that. No.
Yeah, it's always a big reason, a big question of why are you leaving, or why did you leave your last job? And you won't always get the truth, but you can get some bad answers from that, and that will quickly help you kind of separate the people. I'll keep mine very short. It's retail experience. That's huge. And then number 2 is, what are your future plans? That's a big one, because if it's, I'm just kind of doing my thing, then they're not going to have an initiative to do more for the store, for themselves, for you. They're going to do the bare minimum. And if that's their attitude in life of, I'm just kind of doing my thing, then no, I need you to have a goal. Even if the goal is, I don't care if the goal's not, I want to be a manager at your store. No, that's BS most of the time. Right. It's like, no, I'm trying to get here in life. Great. You need to have some kind of future plan. And I think that reflects in the rest of their work going right down the line.
That's a good one.
Yeah, what's their motivation? Correct.
And the next one from Innsmouth is, if a customer asked for a book/game you thought they wouldn't like, what would you do?
Sell it.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the truth, because what you like or don't like is not going to reflect on them. And if they ask for your opinion on it, then generally that's when I will say something and I will be honest. But what about you, Bobby, if they're buying like a board game that's maybe universally panned or something like that?
So I'll give you the straight up answer that's very common with me, maybe for you as well, is the standard, maybe once or several times, actually it's several times a week. Do you have Secret Hitler, or do you have Cards Against Humanity, or the random, do you have Monopoly? That lets me know that they don't play a lot of games and they're looking for what they don't understand is a really good game. So I don't carry any of those. Obviously, I carry beyond Monopoly. That's big box retail that carries that only. Cards Against Humanity we don't carry because of the subject material, and it's mainly distributed to Target now at this point. A lot of people don't understand. I'll get to that in a second. And then Secret Hitler, the subject material is just offensive. So as a company, we just won't carry that. You're talking about Auschwitz and Hitler himself and all that stuff. It's a social game too, so it's just not right. So we decided not to carry that game. So it's easy for me to sit there and judge them real quick, which I do in my head, but then I try to turn that around as like, okay, well, you're in my door and you're looking for a game, so now what can I get you? So I'll ask them why they're looking for it, and then I'll ask them, have you played this? So like if they're looking for Cards Against Humanity, they're looking for a fun social game. So I'll tell them, have you played Coup? Have you played Avalon, the Resistance? And they'll, yeah, I think I've heard of that. And I'll walk them over to, while I'm still talking to it, and I'll put it in their hand, and then I start telling them what it's about. 90% of the time, they walk out with that title.
Yep.
Because I've converted the sale. So what to answer your question, Innsmouth, is you take the negative that I know is a negative, and I use my sales experience to turn that around and get them something. It's not a trick. It's not a blind thing to like, oh, I tricked them, ha ha ha. No, it's like, let me actually give you something that's better. And most of the time, they come back and they buy a different game, because then they'll say the next time they come back is, man, we played that Coup game all freaking night. Do you have anything else that's similar? What's that other game you were telling me about? Boom, they buy that one. And then if they happen to come back another time, either they've already explored enough and they know what to look for now, or they want the next recommendation. Because at that point, now they trust you. You've given them the right recommendation. It worked for their group. And that's what sales is. So that's how I do it.
And difference with yours, Kelli, in coffee, if they order something they're not going to like, you just kind of take it and do the return and exchange, because later on they're like, that wasn't very good. Can I get something else?
Yeah, typically they'll ask for a recommendation if they don't know what they like, or they'll come in and say, hey, this is what I usually get, but I kind of want to try something new. What else would you recommend? And so one of the benefits of where I work is I get the opportunity to try everything, even things that I do not like. The flavor caramel is terrible. I will fight everyone. Any coffee with caramel in it is just too sweet and I hate it. But let me tell you, it's the most popular flavor that's out there. Everybody wants a caramel macchiato. Everybody wants, a blended caramel beverage. Like that's just the norm that people look for. And so you can tell they don't really like coffee when they get anything with
like
caramel.
Milkshakes.
Right. But, getting to learn all those flavors, and it just in food and beverage, you learn what else there is. But the same kind of thing, going back to those sales tactics, we sell food. If I run out of something, it's training my employees, don't say, no, we're out. Say, actually, I'm out of that right now, but I have this other option. Are you looking for something vegetarian? Here's what I have. I'm out of my, plain bagels, but I have these other bagels that are already stuffed with cream cheese. Do you want to try those? And again, just converting that sale into something else. And 90% of the time they say, cool, let me try that. If it's something that they really don't like, then they bring it back up and I say, cool, let me make you your original. And now you don't like this. We move on.
Moving along here, next question from Innsmouth. What's the most interesting thing in your shop? Mine is the giant Superman Red Sun statue that I specifically said, this is the only one item. Any other statue, you can pick, the owner, like whatever you want. But we need to have the Superman Red Sun statue, and that's still my favorite item in the store.
Are you sure it's not the gauntlet that everybody likes to make the middle finger with? I would debate that's probably the most interesting one thing.
Man, we sold that thing, and I'm so glad that we have not been able to reorder it.
Ask him to reorder another one?
Let's not remind them that let's not try to. Times are tough right now. We can't reorder that kind of stuff.
I'll make sure one gets reordered for your store. I'll help you out with that.
No, we can't afford it. No,
it's a crowning jewel. For my store, it's I have a couple mounted. They're Dungeons and Dragons. So I have a dragon head, a black dragon head, and a beholder. And the beholder sticks out. People look in, they see it, and they're like, "Oh, wow, that's cool." They ask about it. A lot of kids are either really enthralled by it or they're tremendously terrified by it. It's the funniest thing. But it's the beholder. The beholder is really cool. I have it set up to where it's like floating. It's held by a really, really thick fishing line. I think I'm using a 120-pound test fishing line.
Wow.
So it's strung up, and I strung it up in a way so that it can spin freely however it wants. So it literally looks like it's floating in the middle of the store. It's set up pretty neat. For those of you that don't know what a beholder is, it's the eyeball with all the tentacle eyeballs that come out of it. I'm sure Innsmouth knows what that is.
Yeah, and within the first year that I was managing the store, and I never did the games ordering when I was a part-timer or full-timer. And since now this is a smaller store, but I had to manage it, I had to take on different tasks that normally 2 or 3 different employees used to take care of. But, I had to do games ordering, comic ordering, and, I've since handed that off to my full-timer, which is great because it takes some things off my plate, which took me a long time to get comfortable with. But within that first year, I was reordering beholders, and I reordered a $600, $300 statue version of it instead of the little one.
Oh, no.
And it came in, and I was like, oh, no.
I bet you sold it, though.
No, we were able to transfer it to a gaming store, to one of the other locally owned ones.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And they're like, no, we'll take it. We could use it. And they did, and they probably did sell it. But that was a big lesson learned of like, I'm no longer looking up beholder to reorder. I'm going to copy and paste the code. And I never made that mistake again.
Man, that's like what, 4 Infinity Gauntlets? You could have used the gauntlets.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Next time I accidentally reorder it, I'll just sell it. I'll see if you want to buy it. How about that? And sell it to you at cost. Another question, last question here from Innsmouth is, most annoying customer stories are always welcome.
So I'm going to stop there. I think we should dedicate, in these trying times, a whole episode just to that. Because between the three of us, we could create a new podcast.
We could.
Actually, there's a new Patreon goal that's coming up soon, right? So maybe that's the name of the new Patreon Kickstarter for new podcast. Your choice, your show, but I think I have so many, and I'm sure you two have so many that
So many.
that's probably going to eat a lot of time.
Yeah, it will. I'll just keep mine short. Is the guy that comes in, who would win between, and that's when I know they're not going to spend any money,
Right.
and they're just there to goof off or whatever. Who would win between, or the other question, what's the most expensive thing you have in here? And 100%, I've never had one person go, and I would like to buy this. Like, that's never, ever happened. So that's where I'm going to keep mine at.
And I'll go simple too. I'll even relate it to what's going on now. For the past 2 weeks, the jerkwads that would come in and say, "Oh, you guys are closing, huh? What are you guys going
Yes.
to do now?" Yeah, we're going to stop there. Like that hits on so many different levels, and they're beyond that because they think it's funny or they're looking for a reaction. So
Yeah, I guess I can keep. We could all go through so many different individual ones, but I guess two really big pet peeves that I have when somebody comes through and calls something by the wrong name, calls it by the name of what it is at another place that has a similar item.
nice.
Because that already tells me, like, you don't ever shop here. You're going to be mad about the price. You're going to be mad about different things. So that's one of my biggest pet peeves. The other one, and part of it's because I feel like a little mama duck, right? Like all all my employees are my little baby ducks. But you can always tell the people who haven't ever worked in food and beverage or retail, anything, service industry, that don't realize how many things we take on at one time. So, for example, my drive-through person, if you come through the drive-through after 11 a.m., there's one person taking the order. That same person is handing out the order. Sometimes the person is making an order also. So when people are ordering through the speaker box, they'll say, "I'm sorry, can you repeat that?" Or they'll repeat it back wrong or something. And when people go, "I'm just going to start over," like when they get really angry at them for asking multiple questions, that just makes me very angry. Don't do that. They have a lot on their plate. They're not trying to screw up your day or your order.
Don't piss off the mama duck.
Don't, like,
Nope.
I will step in sometimes and like finish taking their order and just be like, "Leave my kids alone."
Next question comes from Spoon Sandwich, who asks, quote, "What goes into organizing events?" I'll leave this one mainly to Bobby. And he says, especially card and board game events.
Sure. I'll try to keep it short because that's a lot. The hardest part of any of that is navigating a national calendar. So when we're trying to do local events, I have to worry about events at a national level. And what I mean national level is let's look at Magic, for example. If Magic's running a Grand Prix, which is it's like a regional event, let's say they're running it in Atlanta. Well, a lot of these players travel. And if I'm running a regular Magic event on a weekend, and that during the same weekend that Grand Prix is going on, or Magic Fest, I'm going to lose like 60% of my player base, probably larger. That's probably conservative. Probably like 80% of my player base, because they're going to go to that Grand Prix and play for huge prizes and qualify for something. So that you have to navigate. Plus, which is the hardest one, I have to navigate other stores. There is competition, just like any other company. There's competition. Well, some stores tend to be friendly in that manner and will navigate around us because we plan out so far in ahead. Some companies will specifically plan on top of us and do a larger scale event with bigger prizing to specifically try to draw from us. Predatory practices.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it happens. It happens in all business. It's just that portion's hard to do because we know inevitably every month someone's going to do it, whether it's the same person or someone else. We also have to worry about things that come up later on that we're not aware of because we plan so far in advance. We plan our larger events, big scale events, sometimes 3 months in advance, whereas things that we plan locally just monthly, we plan about a month and a half in advance. Some companies are not very good with their communication, and when I say distributors and game companies, and they'll do things on the same weekend that we have something else planned. So like Pokemon will conflict with Magic, or Yu-Gi-Oh will conflict with Magic, things like that. And when you're driving large crowds between each one of those, and you have an overbook because of an outside liar, that sucks because now you can't cancel it. And I've had to do that numerous times. I'll have to run 2 larger events on the same day. It sucks, but we get it done.
And this one will go for all three of us as well, because Spoon Sandwich says, how do you see the events changing in the near future with the COVID stuff and whatnot? And I think that just goes in stores in general. How do you guys think that your business is going to change moving forward because of this? Or has anything came out from this that you're like, you know what, maybe we can implement that moving forward? And I'll start with Kelli.
I think for sure across the board, you're going to see companies have different procedures in place for when something like this happens. If it happens again, I think a lot of companies moved as quickly as they could, but not as quickly as they should have. And so, yeah, just to kind of have those standards in place, this is something that we haven't faced in, I don't even know, like I'm sure many years ago, right before there were, of course, like polio and all that kind of stuff, but nothing to this scale in recent history. So yeah, definitely new procedures in place of, okay, how are we going to take care of our employees? Because I think for a lot of companies, you know, Disney's a great example. They closed the park and like employees are waiting like, okay, am I going to get paid? Am I going to have to use my paid time off? There just wasn't a lot of communication about that. Mm-hmm. One of the best things about food and beverage is everybody needs to eat. Everybody needs to, you know, get something to drink. And we're kind of at that price point where I really, coming out of this, don't see our business affected that much. And we'll hopefully spring back fairly quickly because, you know, people say, okay, well, I got $5. Like, let's go. This is a cheap date. We can get something. We can sit in the lobby and enjoy that. So
obviously we're in uncharted territory and things are changing every day. We're learning more and more constantly. And that goes for all companies. My biggest fear is that the disruption that we're experiencing now for most of our product is going to be experienced over the next, 8 to 12 months. It could be a year, 6 to 8 months in the long term, where things are going to be hugely disrupted. In my industry, a lot of things come from China. A lot of the board gaming manufacturing companies are all the factories are all in China. There's one here in the U.S. and there's like one in Canada, but that's not enough to keep up with the demand that's worldwide. So like 90% of the production on most of that stuff all comes from China. Well, it's been disrupted for the past like 3 months. Going forward, and they still haven't recovered. When they do recover, who goes back to work? How long is it going to take them to rehire? How long is it going to take them to start getting those wheels turning again to where they can actually start producing product? Then you have the point where, now they're sending the product. Then there's that delay because it all comes over on shipping containers. That's at least 2 months. So we're looking at a long-term effect. And yeah, this is only industry, but economy-wide, we're going to have that. And I'm not trying to get political. We're going to have that overall with everything that's from overseas because we'll be missing that stuff. So effects will linger, and that's what all companies are going to have to struggle with. With my company, we're going to have to struggle with that. Luckily, there's some companies that print in the USA. Pokemon prints right here in Georgia, one of their main factories. So I don't see too much disruption with Pokemon. Magic prints overseas. They have a small printer here in the US, but majority is overseas in China, Japan, and Germany. Germany is the biggest one. Konami is all out of Japan for Yu-Gi-Oh! And Cardfight Vanguard. All those other Japanese games are all in Japan. So they're going to have some disruption as well. How that's going to affect us going forward, I'm fortunate enough to work with a company that has a very large website, very large presence, big footprint. So when this is all to the point where we can start gathering again, I can open up and start doing things. Well, you're talking about other stores that are smaller and don't have that backing. They may not come out of this. And even if they do, they're not going to have the product, I guess, or things to make that happen. So it's going to be tough regardless. I don't know the answer to that 100%. I'm being optimistic. I hope things get better. The fact that we're going to have that hiccup in production and distribution is going to be the bigger problem. And I'm sure Dana can speak on that.
Yeah, all these delays are definitely going to be an issue for a lot of the publishers, and I know we're probably going to end up losing at least one or two independent publishers, unfortunately, but it is what it is. I think we're all going to kind of lose out on that. The final question here comes from @Pandanime. He asked, quote, More a question for @ReasonsI'mBroke, but do you ever judge customers based on what they buy? For example, a more adult series like Sunstone or Money Shot, or a thing you don't care for like Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And we did touch on that a little bit in the way that people order things. And yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh players are
I judge
notorious.
them. When they come into my place and ask for Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm just like, I know.
Yeah, those players don't have a great reputation, and it is for a reason. It happened at the game shop that was in my town for a while. A lot of theft going on, and that's one reason we don't run Yu-Gi-Oh. And the other thing is, it's not really that huge a base, unlike Dungeons and Dragons or Pokemon, that we can run more successfully. But as far as like dirty comic books, not an issue. Once we know, like, all right, that's what they're into, like gore books or sex books, it's second nature. It's like, all right, that's just what they're buying. It is what it is. So if it's like an extreme sex book, like maybe internally, like, hey, check out this page, like something weird, but it's like once or twice, and then the novelty kind of wears off. It's not really a huge thing. It just becomes like another book that in fact, I use that where we have a new comic book day group in the store, and sometimes I'm like, all right, I know this person is on that group. I'll put up like, I think this sexy variant they might like, and I put it up, and without fail, like, yeah, and one of those, I'm like, cool. And then sometimes I'll get extra people like, yeah, that is kind of a sexy cover. And I'm like, sex sells, whatever, you know? So it's not, I don't think it's as bad as people think, because I have had readers where they're real nervous, like, oh, I need to sub to Tarot Witch of the Black Rose. And that's like a special order only, none on the shelves type of book. And it's like, all right, but I think they think that we make fun of them more than it ever happens, if at all. So that's my answer to that one.
Yeah, I wouldn't make, in your example, I wouldn't make fun of somebody because of what they're buying. Would I second guess them in my head? Maybe, if they're being weird. If somebody's going to go out of their way to make themselves look weird, then yeah, now I'm going to start, stereotyping you. But if you just order something or want something that seems subjective, that's your business. You do you. I'm selling it to you, and you're taking it. That's all there is to it. That other than that, it's there's some things that are blatantly over the edge, like the White Shorts game that we used to carry. That game is that's ridiculous. The object of that game was to climax, so we won't talk about that anymore. But that was the object of that game. So I'm sure I think Scott played that. He knows exactly how that game works. No offense, Scott, but I know you know what that game's about.
And that is the last question from the Brokehead Core. Huge thanks to all of you for coming forth and submitting these questions for Bobby, Papa Kelly, and myself. Bobby, anything else you want to wrap up with as you do your closing thoughts on your shop? And then Papa Kelly, your closing thoughts on yours.
If you have any questions for me for board games, card games, organized play, tournaments, anything like that, just hit me up. In general, anything, doesn't matter. Also, in this time of uncertainty, let's be kind to one another. Let's help one another. Kelly gave a great example in the shopping. When you're shopping and you hear something, step up, be that superhero. I'm pretty sure everybody that's around you will stand up and rally behind you, so you don't have to feel like you're alone and like you're going to get bullied for saying something. We're all pretty walking on eggshells right now and pretty touchy. And then there's a bunch of idiots out there. We need to put the idiots in place and then educate them. If you don't need to be out, stay your ass home. No offense. If you need to go out, just go out and be respectful. Keep your social distancing. Don't touch things you don't need to touch. Mm-hmm. And, keep yourselves clean. When you go home, make sure you clean, wash your hands so you don't contaminate anything in your private home. You bring anything into your home unwanted, then it's a whole different story, especially if you got young ones or other family members. You have to look out for everybody else around you in your family, not just yourself. So it's easy to be selfish, but you have to be selfish to protect the ones around you as well.
Yeah, Bobby took all the words right out of my mouth. Be kind, stand up for other people, but yeah, it's about protecting yourself. So don't be afraid to tell someone, hey, you're standing too close. I get that we're in line, but social distancing, like stand farther away from me, right? Because you don't know what you're bringing home, and that's your family. It's not just you. So, yeah, that's it. Bobby, framed it perfectly. So
There's some disgusting individuals out there.
Yeah.
So you just need to stay away from them and protect you and the others around you if you can.
when this is all over, they will not be still telling their friends. When I was in Target, someone in line told me to stand 3 feet away. Maybe it'll open their eyes to, oh, you know what? I wasn't paying attention. I'm stuck here on my phone. Yeah, I do need to stand further back when I go out.
Very good advice from both of you. Bobby, there's going to be links in the description of today's show notes, but where can they find you to ask you those gaming questions?
You can mainly find me. I'm always lurking in the Discord channel, so if you want to join the Discord channel, I'm sure Daniel will have that link there. Join the Discord channel. You can ask those questions publicly, and it won't be out amongst the Twitter internetverse. If you do want to find me on Twitter, I'm on Twitter at Qbanslim. That's at Qbanslim. And that's pretty much for my social mediums. I'm on Facebook, but I don't use it, so I'm not going to give it to you. Instagram is tied to my Facebook, but I never touch it. So just Twitter and Discord for me. Again, any gaming related questions, I can help with comics from a different point of view as well. As non-running a comic shop, I'm a nerd too. So I'm big on Pokemon. So if you got any Pokemon questions, I'm your guy.
And I do want to thank both Kelli and Bobby for joining us on today's episode, an extra episode of content for the Brokehead core out there, especially to the ones that are quarantined right now, an extra something to hopefully get you through at least the extra hour and a half on your day. So thank you both for being able to come on this one.
Absolutely.
Fashionably late, but I was here.
And thank you, Brokehead Core, for tuning in to today's episode. I've been Expert Daniel.
I'm Emperor Kelli.
And I'm Trainer Bobby.
And Brokehead Core,
all will be well.
All will be well.